Welcome to the Tennishackery podcast. This is the place where we discuss all things about tennis related to technology, fitness, and of course, the brain game. My name is Tarun, and today we have a full house. We are a group of extremely passionate tennis geeks slash fans slash coaches from the San Francisco Bay Area. Uh, I'll start with a bit on the marketing spiel. So please follow us on all our socials. We are at Tennishackery with a Y on Instagram, X, which used to be Twitter, Meta, which used to be Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify. Our website is still under construction. It will come out soon. Again, blame the IT guy. Today is a very special episode, episode 10. We made it to double digits. Yay. And I will let Soham lead this. Hey, Soham.
Thank you. Hey, good evening, Tarun, and good evening, Alex. Today is a very special episode, like Tarun said, and we were eager to present a fresh new face who I have known for a very, very long time through USCA and NorCal Tennis. We have been on teams together. We have competed together on a team. We have competed against each other, and I can say my buddy, not exactly the same age. My buddy is wiser. He has a wealth of knowledge in the sport of tennis and in coaching, and definitely on the subject that we're going to talk about today on tennis philosophies. So it is our pleasure at Tennishackery to welcome Craig Lazarchik for this podcast, and I'd let Craig talk a little bit about himself. How are you doing, Craig?
Craig.
Thank you guys. Too kind, and pleasure to be here, and just a treat to be a part of the tennis Northern California landscape and nerddom and all things talking, living, breathing tennis. And Soham, I've known you for a while. Alex and I have met briefly, and Tarun, great to talk to you. And it's amazing how the tennis universe works. I've only known Tarun and Alex for a short period of time, but it's like I know you almost as well as Soham without the dinners and the tennis and the competition. So thank you, and for the warm welcome, and just happy to be here, and we'll learn from everybody here, and put in my 1.5 cents where needed. So thank you.
Welcome. It's again our pleasure, and we are so happy to that you called me up one day and you're talking about this podcasting, and I was like, wait, we are already doing it, so why don't you just join us? It will be exciting, and we have so many topics to talk about, so many things in common, and it's a very good synergy, I think. And again, we are very glad to have you. So today it's very, very relevant and appropriate that we talk about philosophies in tennis, in coaching, in general, like what is your philosophy in tennis? So I'm going to ask a hard question first, and I'm going to let Alex go first here. Alex, what is tennis philosophy to you? You're a coach, you've played at a pro level too. What exactly does tennis philosophy mean to you?
I've been asked that question so many times, and I always change the answer a little bit. But the one thing that I do know is that it's the goals of the player, that I'm focused on what they want. And it's a little different when they're super young and they don't know yet. Then it becomes more the philosophy of teaching them the fundamentals and making sure they have fun. And then I change my philosophy when they get older to making sure that I'm teaching them that they have ownership, and they know what they want, and it's a little bit them leading while I'm guiding them. And then with adults, it's more, you really talk about what they want, and they might have like the wrong grip, but then it's like, okay, do we want to change that or not? So that's kind of how I see philosophy. I was wondering, Greg, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think quite similarly. I think maybe coaches, at least some coaches, are embedded maybe in a philosophy, but it does have to be tweaked to age dynamics. And tennis, we all agree, and we've all talked about tennis being a movement-based sport. But like Alex said, it's like when somebody's younger, maybe a young kid, 5, 6, 7, 8, and they're just learning how to move. And maybe some technical things are going to be more important. And then that junior level becomes where they can do everything in their growth. Maybe they do one thing or two things super, super well, along with movement, where they have amazing serve and amazing forehand. Then my whole performance might not be serve and forehand, but you might have to tailor that as a coach, to your client. And then I agree with Alex, not only changing somebody's grip when they're a 53-year-old, adult male gorilla out there taking your men's clinic once a week. They might need the therapy couch as much as they need they need that talking to as much as they need a technical hand here and there. So yeah, I can't agree more. And I think it's up to the coach to help match what they want to do with the client, and to be focused. And you could have a lesson plan every single lesson for 7 hours of the day, and it could be tweaked. Those 7 hours are all going to be a little bit different. And that's the beauty of tennis. And I think that's why those clients keep coming back to good coaches. They realize that, they're going to tailor certain lessons to them, and they really appreciate it. And I think we do get that feedback that is very, very positive from them. And I'm always welcome the feedback that comes back where it's like, hey, I really wanted to get to this today. Maybe we can get to that next week. And that's always a good reminder for any experienced coach to make sure you get to what the client would like to do, and not just what you are set out to do in your lesson plan or your philosophy.
Yeah.
I
No,
love
I
that, Craig.
Yeah,
Love it.
Yeah, makes total sense.
I'm gonna have a quick plug in here. I was fortunate. One day I was hitting with Alex, and we have a common student, and I stayed back and got an opportunity to watch Alex teach the same student that I teach. And it's interesting because the way what I do with him in my session is very, very different from what Alex does with the same kid. He's he's like UTR 5.5, 6, and he's playing lots of tournaments and competition. And, he has some strengths, some weaknesses. And it's just interesting to see that my philosophy in tennis, for example, is very different from somebody else. And I like that because I believe certain kids, juniors who are going the competitive route, should sometimes get perspectives from two different coaches, as long as they're not wildly like polar opposites.
Yeah.
And the good thing I saw with Alex teaching him, and when I teach him, is like I think there is a lot of overlap, which is great, right? But Alex, I'll give you a compliment, because I think I really like the way you did it. Is you are very, very quick to identify where somebody can improve, like technically, really well. And I come from a background where I actually haven't learned all the fundamentals. I've actually watched people, I've watched videos, I haven't been taught it. So I've had to pick up kind of on the fly. So I have a very different mindset when I coach. It's like situational tennis. It's like getting ready for, like, very strategic, very heavy on fitness, kind of similar to how I play, like I grind. So most of my students do that. But when I saw you teach the same kid, you're like, oh, you need to kind of rotate your hips a little bit. You need to, have a couple of extra steps, the body weight. So it's very, very technical, which is great for a student, because now he's getting both my style of coaching and yours type of coaching, which makes it more wholesome. Let's say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And first, thank you. I appreciate that. And I think it's really a good combination of actually the examples us now, of you being so strategic and having point play as the main focus, and you play points almost the whole time, right? You do some drills and then you do point play.
That's
you have
right.
different situations of that. And your mindset, because you are actually like playing a lot of competition yourself. So you're really connected to it. And that's different from coaches that are not playing. So you're definitely offering things that other coaches that have maybe more experience with the technical, but you have that experience. So a great combination for him.
Tarun, this is
yes.
where I want to ask you a quick question because
Mhm. Yes,
you
please.
work with a lot of very small kids.
Yes, I
I
work
know
with some
your
of the younger
kids are
kids.
small, they're
Yes,
playing like orange ball, green dot kids.
right.
Can you give us like how do you teach them? Like it's really hard. I know you have to be patient because I've also taught
Yes.
the green ball level, orange ball level, green dot ball level, right? What is your fundamental philosophy? Is it making it fun for them, exciting for them?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, they have short attention spans, and you don't want the class to last firstly beyond 30 to 40, 45 minutes, not more than 45 minutes. After that, the whole attention span goes down. You just need to make it more fun. I try to like have some fun games, teaching them the fun. So my philosophy is more on the physical side of things, teaching the fundamental movements, running, catching, throwing, lunging, these, and I often encourage them to play other sports. I say that, yeah, if you got to be playing multiple sports, and that is going to help your tennis in the long run. So we spend a lot of time in tracking the moving ball, and then the final 15 to 20 minutes is where we work a few on the technical stuff. So I follow the PTRs and the UST. I think they put together this American development model with all the ages and stages, with the orange book, the progressions, and they have a bunch of good drills, and taking kids GPS approach, the grip, swing path, and positioning, and patterns. So I follow that approach, and I think, but I do not stick to making to using up the full time of my class with that approach, because that gets too technical, and the attention wanders off. So in short, it's more on the physical side of things, for physical and the movement side of things for me.
Fantastic, fantastic. That's good to hear. And I believe that playing multiple sports, like you said, is very, very helpful. Like I always encourage kids to play soccer and tennis, or basketball
Yes.
and tennis and swimming. Like it is certain skills are transferable, right, across sports.
Yeah.
Now, Craig, I have a very specific question for you. You have been a tennis director at various locations in the Bay Area. Uh, can, can you describe like what's a typical coaching day for you? Of course, I know it depends on the level you're teaching, but let's just take like an example. Somebody who's competing probably wants to go to D3 school, let's say, and is like 13, 14, 15-year olds who are competing, and maybe UTR 7, 8, 9-ish. What's a typical uh, coaching like day for them?
Yeah, that's the sexy lesson, right? Like a lot of times, you have the ladies clinic in the morning and the men's clinic, and then a little break, and you go do your director stuff, and then you come back and do the orange ballers and green ballers, and then you get that 9, 8, 9, 10 UTR, and that's what makes. I mean, listen, I love all of it, but to really get that icing on the cake for that kid who's really going to be testing maybe what we grew up with, to test those competitive juices, and to share that with them, him or her, is a really special thing. And I think in lessons for those kids, it goes back to what Alex said, and you just cover whatever territory they're on. And at that point, it becomes really, and I'd like to get Alex's follow-up after that, it gets to be really micro at that point, right? Where I just might spend 45 minutes on serve plus one or return plus one based on what they have coming up, or hey, I haven't been doing this drop step correctly on my inside out forehand, and we're gonna pound the heck out of that. So it's only ad court return plus one or serve plus one. That's when it gets like super fun. And for those of us who've maybe gone and watched practices for the pros, certainly not comparing any of the levels that we talked about here to them, but their lesson plans can go from macro to like uber micro, and I think we've all seen it. But it's those are the fun times for me, is like you get those micro times, and that's when it gets really, really fun. Alex, what do you see in those areas when you're teaching those students?
I'm 100% with you on that. Like it is sometimes macro, depending on if you haven't seen them for a while, if they haven't played much, or if they're coming from a different surface. And then sometimes it is, they came back from a tournament and their serve was really an issue, their second serve, let's say. And then, like you said, you just focus on that. You might do a warm up. You do a warm up, you go through everything, and then you go straight into the serve. That's what I do. And then at least, the first part, the main thing is the main focus. And then once that feels good and we've had some progress, we can focus on something else. But I think also when it comes to, you were saying, so I'm like 8, 9 UTR.
Yeah.
Right. I think also hopefully it's a situation that you've worked with that player for a little bit and you know him or her better. It just gets more personal. You figure out what you're working on. How is something mentally going? How is the motivation going? How is the balance of everything together going? I think it becomes very unique, every situation. Yeah. So
On
basically
this
what you
topic,
said, Craig.
yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah, on this topic, I have a follow-up question. Since we are talking about coaching juniors and both at the beginner level as well as the intermediate advanced level. So I'm a parent, 2 kids, 9 and 10. So how do you see the role of the parent? As they talk about the parents, the coach, they work as a team. But how do you see as the role of the parent? And what is your process? How do you incorporate them into your coaching philosophy / program? And feel free to take this in any direction you want, whether it's the beginner level or any advanced level. Maybe I'll start with you, Craig.
Yeah, so I think for me, they can be quite distinct between young kids, like Tarun, the kids that you're talking about, and then the kids that then Soham introduced into like the 8, 9 level. And
yes,
for me, and this is not just a blank canvas, there's some 80-20% maybe, but 80% I want the parent to be good cop. Okay. So if your kid is coming to our program 2 or 3 days a week and they're taking a private with me also once or twice a week and they're out there 3 or 4 or 5 times a week, when you go out with them on a Sunday or Monday or Saturday afternoon, make it fun. Don't just take them out and get them reps. And then they'll come to you and say, Dad, let's go on the tennis court. Let's go on the tennis court. Let's go on the tennis court. And then we can come back and reinforce the next week, their areas of opportunity or their really good things and progress them. But once the parent might get involved in that a little too much, because I think it's important that they're a partnership for sure. But if you don't want that student to resent the parent, right? That, oh, dad's telling me one thing or mom's telling me one thing, and my coach is telling me another. No matter what we share on the court with the parents, they have jobs and they have lives and they have full-time schedules. It's just going to be hard to duplicate what we do with them for that hour and a half, 3 or 4 times a week. Now with the UTR junior and the tournament player and the traveling player, like Alex said, if they're coming back from a tournament, that's a partnership with the parent. And like Alex said, it's going to be niche-y, it's going to be micro, it's going to be unique to that client. And they all need something different. And I think as a coach, you have to be flexible. And maybe it's the coach and the parent and the kid just trying to all take that information and get on the same page every week, every month, or a similar, not even maybe the same page, but a similar page, just so you're all heading in the same direction. And I think we've all been through it. Sometimes that direction is an uptick. Sometimes it's not. And that's the beauty of it, though, coming back and recovering. Like there's nothing better than your student coming back and taking first or second, in a really big tournament. But then there's something rewarding about trying to go through the tough times too, and taking out the shovel and digging out of a hole and working together with the parent and working together with the student. Because that's kind of when you really get to know them. Right, Alex? When you really get to know what their fiber of being is and what they're made of, and to Soham's point, what kind of competitor they are after they come back, maybe from a loss, and then you're talking to the parent, you're talking to your client, and it's a whole different scenario. How do you see it, Alex?
I think that's when our job is most important. It's when they are down, when they are struggling. How can we help them personally? And the parent obviously like is a huge part in that too.
Yeah.
I think the partnership with the parent is super interesting always, because it's always different, obviously, with each coach and each parent. Especially if the parent is a coach in some sort of way too, then it is also a certain dynamic. That's
Tell
speaking
me
about
about
Balancing
it.
act
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
but it actually happens quite often.
I'm looking to hire coaches actually.
I mean, I have a lot of players that I've coached that had the
Yeah.
parent as a coach.
Yeah.
So I've definitely like been in that situation very often. So that always becomes a dynamic of like,
Yeah.
let's make sure that we're really a team in this, and
Yeah.
and how can we do that, and which role, and is it changing at some point, or, you know, it's quite a dynamic. And if that's not the case, then it's usually a lot more straightforward. And then I think it's also, for me, it's been like a learning of how do I communicate with the parent what is going on and where we're at. Not keeping them too far away, but keeping them engaged, and knowing how to communicate that. Yeah, but I have a question for you, Craig, that I really want to talk about.
Okay.
So I recently became a director at a club, and you have way more experience than I do in
Woo. Congratulations.
Thank you. What is your advice for me as a new starting director? You can also tell me after the episode a little bit.
So I'll reverse engineer it. So balance after the first 12 months. Like you got to have, and listen, we all live and breathe tennis and it's great.
Yep.
But there's different energy, mentality. You're just a different person when you're the ultimate face of your club. You're always on. And as a pro, you're always on. And if you're not 5 minutes early, you're late. There's all those cliches and those truisms that go for being in the service industry and being a professional, hopefully an expert in our fields. But when you're a teaching pro, you kind of can leave it, and sure, we get a text at 10 o'clock at night about, hey, my kid needs this, or can I come to your clinic in the morning? Yeah, you answer it, it's not a problem. But when you're the director, you got to try to create a balance after like 12 months. Because the first 12 months is tough. Like you just got to create your own, you got to learn what worked, learn what didn't, know what members want and what's sincere and what they want, not just if it's the niche members that say we want this, but that's what they say for every director that they've churned and burned for the last 10 years. And once you really find out the heartbeat of the club, which I think you do in the first year, kind of marry that dynamic with you, because you're going to be a part of that heartbeat, and then just crush your operations and your systems to support all the stuff that we don't like to do. I mean, the reason why we like to work in tennis maybe is because we're people's people.
Yeah.
And we love tennis and that we want to be on the court. I mean, do you really want to spend 3 hours from 12 to 3 in the office, doing systems and operations? And if you're a tennis pro, probably not, but those are some of the necessary evils. And if you can put those systems and operations in place the first year that are really good, and you'll continue to tweak them and make them better and even more efficient, but really work hard on those areas, because if they hired you, they know you're the right person for the gig, for the people part. But just get your business part dialed in the best you can. And then after a year, it gets easier and better and more efficient, and hopefully you can create that balance. That's what I would say. And you'll know after a year if you're in the right spot or not, for sure.
No, that already makes sense. It's been only a few months, but I can already see that it's going to be about balance, and it's all about building.
Yeah, 9 more months of no balance, and then you'll be set. So if you ever need to lean on somebody, please call me.
Yeah, I probably will. Thank you.
That's fun listening into you guys tennis directors, which I'm not. So it's a learning experience for me. Maybe
Absolutely.
I will. So I'll get as much information as I can from you guys. I do have a specific question that I was thinking about. So coming back to our discussion before, basically about teaching tennis philosophy. So one of the things I want to discuss, because it's kind of the way I saw one of the coaches next to me do this, and I kind of took that from him, and I implemented and executed with my students. Is, when I teach, of course, I teach with fitness, competition, strategy, all of those things at the core, but I make sure that kids are not one dimensional. What I mean by that is they have a lot of tools that they can utilize. I try to use variety in their approach to tennis, not just bang 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 from the back and that's it. I strongly emphasize using variety, and for one to be able to use variety in certain situations, they need to have a toolbox. So they need to learn a lot of different ways to play points, right? Few things that I want to mention is number one is I make sure that a lot of my students, once they are at a competitive level, I invite students with different style of play. So all my students play against other students. Most of them have a different style of play, so that when they go into competition, they have seen something like this already. So they're a little bit more prepared. So that's number one. Having your students prepared for different styles of play, right? Number two is I also ensure that I do a little bit of singles as well as doubles tennis. Not everybody does this, I've seen. I kind of feel like it's very important for all budding tennis, juniors or whatever, to understand both singles and doubles tennis. So I have a lot of doubles like tennis happening between my students, right? What are your thoughts on this? Because I feel like I see a lot of coaches just focus on singles, or just it's very one-dimensional.
Like baseline grinding style is what you meant.
Right,
Okay.
right. So yeah, so I'm trying to make sure there is variety, as well as they are prepared for different situations, but also in singles and doubles. Craig, I know you play a lot of doubles. We have played doubles. What's your opinion on this? Like, do you implement something like this? Is doubles necessary? Should we only focus on singles, or it should be like a combination of the two?
Yeah, so to go back how you originally opened up your statement in question is, it's always okay to look across the court or on the court next to you where there's another pro and steal anything good. So yes, that is always a good thing. You can always take from another pro and learn and add to your bag, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And two, I'm a big fan of kind of co-op private lessons where you bring in another, instead of having 1 hour lesson, you call the parent and say, hey, look, we're going to make tomorrow's lesson an hour and a half. We're bringing in Bobby, and Bobby's going to play Johnny. And, and you have them play against each other, in prep for league, tournament, whatever. So yeah, big fan of that, and different styles, because tennis is a little bit like working out. You have to get uncomfortable to get to progress and get comfortable, right? Like you just can't stay in a comfort zone. You have to constantly improve, and that's not a great feeling. It almost feels like you will never get there, right? But it's a constant evolution. Tennis is. And then yes, it's interesting. Tennis is changing, and I think we're on the way out of maybe the general statement of all singles and all like serve and forehands. And I think tennis, you can see in the pros, they're becoming more all court players.
Yeah, right.
And in the pro, and I don't know if it's translated a ton to the juniors, because there's a lot of my kids and even adult players who just aren't great at the net. And I think that's an area as coaches we need to do a better job of. Where there's so many easy points. And I tell my clients all the time in our clinics, listen, at 30 all, 4-4 in the first set, you miss an easy bunny, lob, overhead, drop shot, volley winner. Now it's 30-40 instead of 40-30. You know, you get broken, they serve out the set. Now you lose it instead of win it. And the difference in that 4-6, 4-6 match that you lost might be like 4 points, you know, and that was one of them. And so, yeah, I think net play, we need anything you can do to get juniors at some point comfortable, because remember, they're vertically challenged, right? So getting them up to the net isn't necessarily always just the best instinct. But if you take the stairs and you can get them there via a heavy baseline shot with topspin and a good approach shot, and then they can get, it's kind of the way modern tennis was played. Everybody thinks, you know, Rafa and some of these other players are great volleyers. They have great percentage on their volleys because they're following in massive, they're smart.
Yeah.
You know, it's the great inside out forehand and followed by a run up and just dump it over the net. But, you know, they're not the volleyers of Edberg and Becker and Sampras and even Federer. So the game has changed quite a bit. And then, listen, masterclass volleyers, but just not, you know, the best ever. And but that's the way the game has changed. And now you're seeing Sinner and Alcaraz. You know, they're all court players. So they can do just about everything, and they're going to get better over their next 5 or 10 years. So, yeah, I think any chance to get a junior at the net is important. The way you do that, Alex, right, goes back to whatever philosophy that you and the parents and you guys all decide on, and you know, and see where it takes you. How do you see that, Alex?
Doubles versus singles, right? Or being an all court player.
Yeah. Oh, so I kind of maybe, yeah, I'll let you
combined it, which was great, but which
yeah.
one?
So I just talked about being more of the all court player and adding as much net play as you can. Doubles definitely lends to that. So maybe follow up on what I said, and then certainly answer the part of the question that I didn't for so long for the doubles.
No, I think you did answer it. I mean, my background is that I'm from Europe and we have a lot of doubles. And so going to college tennis and having already had a lot of doubles competition was definitely, I'm really happy that I had that. So because of that, I think it is very important. I should actually teach it more. It's very easy to not teach it, you know, especially if you have a lot of privates. So yeah, I agree, Soham. I think it's very good to do doubles practice and do even doubles drills. You can even do that if you're one-on-one. I actually had 2 players today do the cross-court serve and volley, play it out. So it's a doubles drill, but it's also just you're learning the first volley and then coming in and the reactions and all that. So no, I definitely agree with that. I think it's really important to put yourself in situations that you're learning new tools. I agree with you, Craig, that everything has changed. Like it's all, you need to have a slice at the higher level. You need to have a decent net game. The higher you go, you need to have a good net game. You need to have defense. You need to have offense. You can't get away with any weaknesses. And the game is just improving. And so, yeah, you need to go with the time. You need to go with that. I agree. I also think that a change from the WTA game is it is becoming a little bit more like ATP. Their forehand is changing. There's more spin. They're coming more to the net. The footwork is way more up and down than before. I mean, you still have players that are like, you know, on top of the baseline, but less, way less. So I think it's way more all court in general.
That's great. Yeah, I agree with you guys. And you know, one kind of follow up, little bit of a tangent question is how much do you guys focus on like technique and fundamentals more so on the technique side of things? Because the way I see it and the way I approach tennis in general is technique is something you're adapting, or you're continuously like tweaking here and there. I know I was talking to Alex one time, we were hitting, and I am more of somebody who is very focused on timing the ball. But then Alex is somebody, and Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, is somebody who plays based on the ball that they're getting, not necessarily 100% focused on the technique, but is very smart to play the right type of shot in that particular situation. Versus some people who are very hung up on getting the right technique, it has to look aesthetically beautiful every shot. Is like, for me, the way I see it is, I think it's more important to play based on the ball you're getting back. Give the ball back based on the ball that's coming to you. It doesn't have to be pretty, but it has to be effective. So effective tennis over aesthetically beautiful tennis. What are your thoughts on this? This question first, Alex, since we spoke a little bit about this on the court, and then Craig and Tarun, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with that. I think that learning to play the ball is essential. I think there's a time and a place to work on a technique, for sure. Yeah, like I said, I think it's very much like, when is it working, isolating, working on technique? When is it working on playing and playing the game? I think when you're warming up, a lot of times you're finding your rhythm. You might be aware of like technique a little bit. And then once you feel like you're good, you start training situational, and sometimes you dedicate like time to a technical part. That also goes back depending on who you're coaching, because that's like the competitive juniors mostly. So now with my new job, I'm coaching a lot of beginners and I'm coaching a lot of adults, and it's actually pretty technical. Because, and it's up to them. Like I always ask, especially the adults, if they really want to make some of those changes. But if you have the wrong grip, like, you really can't improve that much. You just
Right.
can't. And so then, and I say it to them, I'll say something like, like, you can get a little bit better for sure, and then we can work on other stuff too. But the foreign grip is this, and this is the grip that would allow you to do this and this. That will be a process, so it's up to you. I'll definitely be on board with you, but the other way we can totally do, and that's no problem at all. We can get a little bit better this way, and I'll just be very honest with them.
Right.
But usually, most of the time, they'll actually say that they want to go with that, like the change, unless they have tournaments coming up, and then it's quite technical.
Yeah.
And then hopefully they have a setup that it's not technical the other days of the week. They play with a ball machine or friends. So it's not technical all the time. I think actually one of the biggest issues of coaches is that it's too technical at times, and they overcoach. So I definitely think because like, if you look at a player, you can see 100 things most of the time. You can always like find something. So I think it's very important that it's not too technical, but there's times it is technical. It has to be.
What about you, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, I can't agree more. And it's you can take each of ourselves and go back through, and I'm like Uncle Craig here in this group, right? Like, I'm the oldest one. So for the 45 plus years or so that I've been playing tennis, has there ever been a time in my life where I've been totally happy with my game, not working on something technical? I've always been working on something, always. And even now, it's like, man, I wish I could push my one-hander out a little bit more like Stan. And it's just, you're always trying to figure out something. Like, it's just always something. It's always going to be that way for the clients that Alex is describing. And you look at a junior and you're like, man, there's like 100 things there, which it's going to take a while. And which one do I focus on? But with that being said, we focus, and not as coaches, but as tennis players. And Alex, I'd be interested in if you agree on this. Would you say that most every client wants to send the ball better? They want to hit the ball better, yes? They you want
Sure.
they want to send it. However, if we told them how, I think Soham phrased the question, and Alex so eloquently answered it, is you got to receive that ball. You got to receive it into your space before you can send it. You have to understand if you're getting a spin or a heavy top or something clunky and dumpy, and you've got to move to get to that ball. And based on that, and I think Alex said that in the first part of her answer, based on that, that's going to set up your technical stroke for your sending. But you have to receive the ball first. And if more clients, I tease my clients a lot. It's like, listen, I don't know how sexy of a lesson plan I'm going to put out here if I say, today we're going to talk about balance and receivership and receiving the ball. I mean, that's just not a sexy lesson. You know, to hear Alex, who's been on the tour, it's like, hey, we need your elbow here and the racket, you know, the racket head needs to be above your wrist and below on the two-handed backhand. Your hips rotating. I mean, that's sexy when you hear it from Alex, right? But to say, hey, I want you in.
No, I don't think it is actually.
Well, you don't, but the people paying for your clinic do, and they appreciate it. But, you know, when you say we need you to be balanced like a surfer dude, or, you know, what happens when you lean forward on a scooter or a surfboard? Well, you go head over feet, you know, and what happens if you lean back or you fall on your butt? Same in tennis. Like, if you're not prepared and balanced, it doesn't matter your technique. You might as well have a shovel out there or those little wooden spoons that you see the guys play with sometimes who are super good. But yeah, so I'm as much of a believer in receiving that ball and getting in that proper position than sending it as well. So along with that, Tarun?
Yes. Yeah. So on this topic, you know, since we are talking about, you know, technique, one very specific area that I had questions on, especially when it comes to, you know, juniors, the serve. So at what point, you know, what is your like philosophy or general recommendations for, you know, the teaching of serve based on ages or stages, even for adult? Please feel free to take it on any dimension you want. Maybe starting with Alex. Like, I mean, do you teach the technical elements first, and you know, when do you introduce? Yes.
With the serve, depending on the level and the age.
Yep.
For example, I have this 6-year-old girl, and she is a beginner, complete beginner, hasn't played much at all. I think she might have done a few lessons before me, and so she doesn't know how to throw yet. So then we really start throwing the ball and learning how to do that correctly. And you know, and that was actually like a real thing of learning not to do it here and to extend and start using the legs, and actually have if she's a righty, have the left leg in front. So I start mimicking it to the serve as much as possible. Just doing that for 5 minutes, you know, and also catching. So there's some athletic building going on. Then, I mean, I'm not gonna go step by step what I do, but like, I think it's very simple stuff, because like they don't know how to do it yet. The serve is so complicated.
Very complicated, yes.
Yeah, and so making it easy, and first, you know, making it fun still. And then when it's with the higher level, I really focus on the feet first, the grip, the feet, because I think if you're not aligned, then all the other stuff is gonna get messed up. So like finding that root cause and going from there. Don't fixate on this elbow that goes down. Don't
that's
fixate
an
on,
illusion.
all those things. They're important, and if everything else is correct, then go there. That's definitely something that I've been really focused on lately, of just like, don't, because like I definitely still have moments that I see something and then I say it, and then afterwards I'm like, no, like don't add to the one thing that we're doing. Let's actually really get that down. And then move on, even though a lot of times players will be like, yeah, but what about this? But I still can't do that one. And then it's just so easy to be like, yeah, you know what? Your toss should be a little bit more here.
It's really interesting. Like, I've seen a lot of the especially orange ball tournaments, you know, where these little kids, like 6 to 8 year olds, they're competing. And it's such a frustrating experience. Like they try to serve double fault and the match is over in 10 minutes. Like I'm trying to like get in there and say, underarm, serve underarm, get the rally going, just serve underarm. So Yeah, many kids are fixated on the serve, and and when you talk, and the parents say that, oh, this is how we are really trying to learn the serve, and we are really committed to getting it right in a tournament, in a precision. These kids are just 6 years, 8 years old. Let them have those rallies. So
yeah. So you
yeah.
feel like it's better to not fixate on this getting the serve right, but just like even underhand, just get it going.
Yes, for up to a certain point, they have to work on it in practice with the fundamental skills that you were talking about, the athletic skills,
Sure.
the throwing, the catching, the lower body. But when they're getting into competition, I mean, can they really translate, put the whole thing together? Is it realistic to expect that? I'm talking about orange ball kids. I mean, some kids, of course, will be more advanced.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that.
Yeah. Craig, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's service complicated, right? It's one of probably the toughest stroke, and
yes,
whether it's an adult and you're talking about something as easy as grip pressure.
Yeah.
These adults are gripping the racket like a 12 out of 10. It's like super tight, and they just afraid they're gonna either lose the racket or let go of it and throw it. It's like, good, yeah, go ahead and do that. I just want you to see what it feels like. Or it's a little kid, and I think you do have to make it fun and give them things to remember. Like one of the things that I do in red, orange, and even green ball is I give the kids like just tasks that they do every day. It's like point, and we use the discs, right? So for righties, it's left foot on top of the disc, right foot on the bottom, and point at your target, and stay connected. I like when they put the ball on the racket and point towards where they want to serve. And then it's like brush your hair, and it's like, they put their racket palm down on top of there, because they're not going to understand what palm down is potentially, but they know what brush your hair is. And I'm like, don't brush it back here, brush it on top, like all the hair that I have. No. And and then it's like, high five. And then, like Alex said, maybe you don't do it with them on the court, even you're doing it on the court, but maybe you do it up against the fence, so they feel what contact point is, 2 feet out in front of them for the high five when they can smush the ball up against the fence. So little things like that for the little ones. And I think if we circle back to just coaching philosophy, not to get into the super technical parts of the serve, but if coaches spent time every day on serve in their groups, then you're right, Tarun, we wouldn't have to go to these orange ball and green ball tournaments and have a 4-2 fast 4 set with like 2 rallies, right? Because that's what's happening, and I've seen it. And you even had some of our kids, and I'm like, this is not going to happen anymore. And we've made a coaching philosophy, and I certainly have. We spend every time, unless there's something super important or deficient, if somebody already has a good serve, for sure, that's fine. But in our ROGs, we'll spend time every day serving, and it's critical.
It's amazing insights from both of you.
Great stuff, guys. Yeah, I agree with Tarun. Thanks for bringing it up too. I have one last question for you guys before. I know we have spoken about so many great stuff.
Yes.
We can go on for hours on this discussion, but we all got to do a bunch of other things in our lives too, right? Otherwise, we could be having Tennishackery episodes all day long, all night long. But
Alex has to go work right now.
Yeah, I know.
And her new gig.
In 7 hours.
One quick question, and we can do it a rapid fire style too. I'm going to ask this question is for all of you guys. I have 2 questions. First one is, and Craig just about brought it up in his previous discussion. And you guys can do 1 sentence each. I'll start with Tarun. How important is video recording yourself and looking at yourself play tennis every single time you step on the court? How important is that, Tarun? Go.
Very important. Not you probably don't want to do it every time, but certain checkpoints definitely important, especially match play.
Alex?
It's a visual, seeing yourself. Yeah, there's nothing that beats that.
Craig?
I'll go the opposite. I'm not a big fan. I think I look better than I actually do. So when I actually see myself on video, I'm like, oh, geez. But the technology that has come along in the last 15 years with things like swing vision and stuff. So if you watch a match, not necessarily me, I'm past the point for me where my elbow is and whatever. I want to know where my misses are, where my makes are, if my shot selection and court position are translating to the data that I want to take out of my match for me and the type of player that I am. And that for me is where technology is heading in my coaching. That's kind of the way I would answer that question.
Great, thanks, guys. That's great input, and I think this is something where Tennishackery will be heavily involved in at some point in the future.
Yes.
Because we are also looking at technology and how we can integrate that with wholesome tennis. I have one final question for you guys, because you guys are all coaching, and this is very important to me because, and I'll go last when I answer this, is describe to me in a sentence, what is your personality on court? How are you with the kids? Because I think it's such an important part of tennis philosophy and coaching in general. I'm going to go backwards this time. I'm going to start with Craig. Craig, tell me about how are you on court?
Fun, honest, and developmental.
Great. Alex?
That's a good question. I'm like, what am I? I mean, it depends on my mood, to be honest, a little bit. Sometimes I try not to, but and also what the situation is, and the type of player. But I think in general, passionate, direct, and easygoing.
Great. I like that. Arun?
Yeah, I would definitely try to project passion, because I want to show that I'm out there, present and passionate is something that I would definitely say, and trying to make it fun. So trying to be present fully for them, giving them the full attention, being passionate about what I teach, and just making it fun.
I'm going to answer this question because it's very hard for me to describe it. I can't be as good as Craig. I said in the beginning of the episode, Craig is a wise man. So I'll have to use a couple of sentences. So obviously, I'm very passionate about tennis. So that goes without saying. And I'm very enthusiastic about the sport. And whether I'm teaching a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old or an 18-year-old, that's always present for me. So definitely passion and enthusiasm, general, I'm very energetic on court, right? And yes, I'm also very honest because I believe in being very transparent with my students and with their parents. And if they have flaws, I want to make sure that the student knows the flaws, they understand the flaw. So I actually demonstrate and I question them if they understand the flaw themselves. I think that's very important because some of the students are not aware of where they're going wrong. So I give examples, I do situational stuff, and I make sure that they understand where the flaw is and they know the solution. So when I talk about solution, I try to work with them. So I will ask them, what do you think? What do you think you should do? If this is the situation, how do you think you can solve that problem?
Nice.
I give them some time to think through it. If they can't come to the answer, if they can't give me an answer, I give them a few hints till they figure it out. Because I think it's very important that kids, whatever level they're at, especially those who are playing at a competitive level,
right,
are able to problem solve and analyze themselves.
Yes.
Yep.
That for me is very important because they should not be given the answer.
Yep.
Right? Yep. They should have critical thinking ability. And this is something that I definitely try to work on. And I actually dislike when parents interfere and they're giving them wrong advice. It's happened a lot of times.
Yeah.
So I kind of tell the parents to stay away on this case. I want the kids to come up with the solution on their own. So yeah, so I'm very transparent. I make sure that they understand that they need tennis is about problem solving, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
those things. And I know it's very long, my answer. And the other thing is I treat them like my friends in a way. I'm not very strict with them. There is obviously boundaries, but they're almost like my buddies. So I have a very good relationship with my students.
That's nice.
Um, so it's almost like they're my buddies, really. Like that's how they are. And I want to make sure that everybody enjoys the sport and everybody sees value in how tennis is so important. It's very difficult. Tennis is a very difficult sport, and there are lots of life skills that you can learn from just tennis. And that value is something that I want to make sure um, the kids understand what tennis brings to you, actually. So that's my, which is why I went last, because my answer was long. And this is why I enjoy coaching. And I would love to, do it for many years to come. And
Awesome, man.
there you go. And Tarun, any final words about, your
Yep.
regular stuff?
Yep. I think with that, we have come to the end of this very, very special episode. I would like to emphasize we have reached 10, that is double digits, and we are still going strong. So amazing achievement, everybody. Uh, as usual, I will start with the end with the marketing spiel. Please follow us on all our socials. Our social handle is at Tennishackery with a Y. We are on Instagram, X, Meta, YouTube, and Spotify. We will soon get onto the other podcasting platforms like iTunes, the Apple Podcast Store, and iTunes, as well as our website will be up soon. So thank you for listening. Please like, share, subscribe. Tell your friends about us. Please follow our social handles, comment, leave us reviews, and engage with us in all the social platforms. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.